Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It's Monday morning. Grumpy's back in action. I know some of us have 4-day, 5-day weekends and stuff, but not in this damn household. I gotta get some work done afterwards. So Grumpy is out, and with us, straight back from the wedding, now a groom, no longer an eligible Polish prince, is Mateusz showing off his ring, right, Mateusz?
It's downstairs.
It's downstairs.
Why would you do that to me? How could you? I told you that
I
in
would throw you
confidence.
under the bus. I promised and I delivered. Ryan says, "Good morning, you beautiful."
Good morning, Ryan. I've been off work since June 17th, so fuck you.
Michelle should be really worried if that ring is gonna keep coming out and going in not easily. But you do have coffee, I guess, so that's a bonus.
I left it upstairs before we left for the trip, June 18th or whatever it was, and it's still good, believe it or not. So yeah, 2-week-old coffee is.
So wait, you didn't take the ring to the wedding?
No, I was talking about my coffee.
Oh. I thought you were still talking about the ring. I was like, wait, what?
No. The ring went everywhere. The coffee stayed upstairs.
See all these people having 5-day weekends, 4-day weekends, chilling and everything. Good morning to everyone and welcome on board. A lot to get to. We're going to make fun of Mateusz for an hour, so a lot of things on the way. But, hey, I had told you guys all freaking week last week, right? To calm the hell down. Everything's going to be fine. Let's give it some time. Let's not give in to the social media and stuff. And boom. Tough acting. There you go. Soboslai is in the house. Anyway, so shocked, surprised, typical Liverpool kind of business where you find out within 48 hours, boom, it's done.
Yeah, I think when it comes to this club, we've seen that when they really, thank you, Serzi, when they really want to go get someone, they make it as professional and as quick as possible. They don't beat around the bush. They go, this is our guy. We're gonna go after him, and that's it. They don't want any drawn out several week sagas that that we see across the country, across the continent even. So I think Megan in Discord has been a huge fan of Soboslai for many years. I have a bit more quietly been a fan. I've mentioned him every couple times here and there. But yeah, I think this is really exciting. He has the look and feel of a Liverpool player in a weird way. Like just seeing him, I don't know, just his aura, I guess. It just fits, right? Like you look at some players that join the club, you're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But then you look at this guy, it just feels like he fits the team, he fits the program, he fits just everything. Like the look of it, it just works for me. So, and I think with you keep looking at me like
I'm trying to roll with it, but I was like, no, okay. Okay, that's fine. By the way, on Friday, we were doing the hot or not thing going with Kazi, because Kazi said even he was falling for Soboslai in some weird kind of way. But I mentioned it on air over here the moment it came up, and I said, the wifey is going to say something about the chin. So I go downstairs after the show, and I was like, hey, did you watch the show? She was like, oh, damn, I forgot to turn it on. And so I said, I'm like, okay, good. Actually, good thing you didn't see it yet. So I show her the picture of Soboslai, and the first thing she says, boom. Nope,
chin dimple.
It's got to go. So I was dead on. Hot or not? So I guess your vote doesn't matter as much, but when you're done fighting over the fact that you're not wearing the ring, you can ask Michelle and give us her inputs.
No, she thinks he's attractive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the chin is not a factor in with every lady. He can play both attacking midfield spots and play all three. And I think that's the thing. So you think this almost gives cover for Mo in some ways when we talk about AFCON and going down a player and stuff during that?
Especially for rotation, if Klopp does want to rotate, I could see him playing the right wing side. I feel like we'll see him playing the right side a lot, whether it is on the wing or just midfield. I think if Salah and Soboslai are on the pitch at the same time, we're going to see him sit behind Salah. But I think if we are going to do a bit of rotation, if we see rotation at all, we're going to see Soboslai on the right wing, and then Salah's not going to play. But yeah, I think it lends itself to some more creativity as far as positioning goes. I think because with Soboslai and now with Trent, you have a couple guys that are pretty, and even McAllister too, right? Like you have guys who aren't necessarily stricken to one position, and they can kind of move around the pitch a little bit easier. So if Klopp wants to move them around in different ways to try different things, I think it lends him a lot of flexibility. And I think it gives a lot of flexibility to set pieces too, because Soboslai is a great corner kick taker. So if that means taking over Robbo's duties on the left side, I don't know. But I think it also gives you just another dimension to work with.
Yeah. So says he's never played that position, but he has played right wing.
He has played right wing.
Actually, his first season at Leipzig is at right wing, I think.
Yeah.
And then eventually he works more into like the attacking mid role and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it's definitely an exciting signing. I know we were talking about this happened right after the fact that, like the Mounts, and we had discussed Mounts on air as well as off air. And I think the biggest difference obviously comes down to the wages, where it's not even like half of the wages and stuff. So here's the question, though, because a couple of questions coming up. First of all, let's crush this, debunk the Thiago stuff. Even though we've been kind of like asking for Saudis to come in and like give a good bid for like 25, 30, 35 million. This whole thing going on the internet that he removed Liverpool from his Instagram profile?
His Instagram profile, yeah. It wasn't on there to begin with. I think, you have someone that goes up, pulls up the account because they want to look at Thiago, sees that, or like see if he posts anything, see that he doesn't have Liverpool FC in his bio, and then start freaking out, and then then they share it, and the next person who's not even double checking, like, oh my god, just reacting to it, just shares it, and that's how it spreads like wildfire. But yeah, it was never in his bio to begin with.
So I guess here's the main question. We just talked about earlier about this was more like a typical Liverpool signing, came up in like, literally within 48 hours of the word coming out, it was a done deal. I think we talked about it. I think it was like 27, 28 it came about, and the clause was like the end of the month and stuff like that. So having said that, Sergi is asking about Lavia and Thuram coming in, especially the latter. And I know the U21 is going on and stuff. Does that shift where they place in our infamous transfer scale over here? I mean, Lavia rumor just came up. First of all, let's start with that. Where do you put that one?
The Lavia one I put in the could happen. I feel like where that needle is, I think that's a pretty good indication of where I see that one fit. Thuram, I'm more on the doubt it side, but I think if there is no Lavia, then Thuram goes up to the could happen. I feel like it'll be one or the other, and it won't be both. I know a lot of people are asking for both, but I don't see both happening. And I think there is something to be said about not wanting to invest too much money into younger players like this, because like we want to have depth, we want to have youth, but you also don't want to spend $40 to $50 million on a bunch of 19 to 21 year olds. I think there's better business to be had than just investing in that specific category with that amount of money, especially when you can get someone like McAllister for less than what you get Lavia for. So I think there is some good business to be had, but I don't think it's going to be both of them unless it's a good amount for both.
So you're saying like one or the other. Who is your preference?
A preference out of probably Lavia, because he doesn't take out. He takes a homegrown spot as opposed to taking away the last spot that you have that's not homegrown. And he's already Premier League proven, which is something that we like to harp on a lot, is that you want to make sure that whoever you're bringing in can play in this league. And so if you're going to spend a lot of money, then you don't want to spend a lot of money on a bunch of players who have never played in this league, unless they've had a lot of games against teams in this league, like Soboslai in the Champions League has had a lot of time against the likes of Manchester City and then other Premier League clubs. So I feel like it's one of those things where you just have to be careful on how much you invest for the age that these players are at.
Brian says Lavia or Kone for me. I think I read somewhere that Kone is hurt now.
Yeah, he's done for a while. I don't think we see Kone move.
Or maybe like the training staff is like, hey, we got all these empty tables.
Keita's left, Ox left. You guys, we need the room here.
Lavia, I don't think he can run that much. Thuram will be more better. I think I go with Lavia mainly because of the homegrown factor.
I think we can't forget that you have to make sure that you can't just bring in a bunch of players from different parts of the world because you don't have room for it. And if you want to have room for another potential marquee signing then that you want to make, you can't make it then because you need to offload someone that is taking up a spot that you want to keep to begin with.
So let me ask you this then: what do you make of Adrian's re-signing? Especially when at least we are on a boat where we're calculating homegrown numbers. I take that as the club is not as concerned, or the plans are designed in a way where that is not a concern. If you're willing to give that slot to Adrian,
yeah, I think what we're going to be looking at is that we're going to see one more signing in the likes of, if it's Thuram, it's Thuram. If it's Lavia, then we'll see one more signing that's outside of England, that in that $40 to $60 million range, I think. So I think with Adrian, he, by all accounts, he's a fantastic locker room guy. He's a great person to have as a teammate. I think he helps adjust any sort of Spanish speakers as well. I think it's important to have that because I don't know if you watched the Bobby documentary on LFC TV, but it goes over when he and his wife came to Liverpool. Lucas Leiva, Felipe Coutinho, those guys and their wives really helped Bobby and his wife settle into Liverpool and really kind of give him a chance to feel more comfortable in a brand new spot. So I think while we have a bunch of other guys that could take, like the Luis Diaz and Darwin Nunez, like we have those guys that could do that, but having Adrian there is that sort of veteran presence in the locker room as well. I think that does help so much more off the pitch than we can ever quantify. And I think for some people, it's tough to understand why you would get the deal if we can't see the effects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think to me, like goalkeepers are a different animal. Like when you look at, I know, let's say look at American football, right? You have like the quarterback's room, wide receivers room, and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of like the linebackers and stuff like that, and this very like bunch of small groupings of players. You don't have that as much with soccer. Yeah, you're gonna split up into groups and stuff like that in certain drills, whatever. But overall, when you look at the team, there is not that much of a separation except goalkeepers. Like those dudes are always like in the other field over and stuff like that, So I think it's like a different community. They just did not want to mess with the goalkeepers room, if you will, and keep that in there. I almost felt like he would be somehow bumped up to, assistant to the regional manager or something like that, and be like an assistant goalie coach or something like that, and kept in there in that sense. But I don't know, like if that changes the dynamics one way or the other. I mean, you would think the club has better math skills than saying, "Oh shit, we didn't think of that. He is not English," kind of thing. Or he's been there so long, maybe they think he's English. That's another possibility. But so I think it was Ryan saying earlier, one more midfielder and a defender. I'll be absolutely happy with this offseason. Which, man, it really feels like you said like the 40-50. I would have loved to have Kim Min-jae over here as center back in that position for the 50. But I mean, he's young. I don't know if he wants to go to a place where he's going to play as opposed to sit behind probably Van Dijk for a while, and like being the part of the rotation and stuff like that. And it's not like he went to Bayern. He didn't just go to like a second tier team or something like that. But do you agree? One more midfielder and defender and close up shop?
I think for most of us before the end of the season, I think a lot of us were saying, we're looking at 2 to 3 midfielders, a defender, and a forward. I think that was sort of where most minds were at. I think we've covered most of that. So I think if they do go out and get the one more, even just one more defender, I think I'll be pretty satisfied, depending on who else would potentially leave. Because I think when you look at the net of what's leaving versus what's coming in right now, I think overall it's been a net positive. As long as the players are able to stay healthy and able to contribute, then it's going to be a huge net positive. So I think as long as I think there needs to be one more defender, whether that's on the right side to actually back Trent up, or if it's that left-sided center back, left-footed center back, excuse me, kind of to help gel this newer system. I think one of each would be, or just one of those two would be perfect, and I'd be pretty happy.
So does that concern you though? Like the numbers still go down if you only sign one midfielder? I guess that's where I'm kind of like, I mean, okay, in some ways you are removing from the equation players like Thiago and Ox when Klopp was in last preseason counting them as midfielders. I think we all were like, hold on, time out. Those guys are not going to be available. Don't even count them. Maybe count them as one together, kind of thing. Is that what you're putting in the numbers? I mean, you lost Ox, Milner, Bobby,
Yeah.
and Keita. So you replace with McAllister, Soboslai, and let's say Lavia. You still are down in numbers. Are you going to fill that with youth, or would you like him to go get somebody and spend further money?
Well, so let's say really quick, just to go through it. You got McAllister. I'm just going to McAllister, Fabinho, Soboslai, Curtis Jones, Henderson, Elliott, Lavia, potentially Thiago. I think that there's a lot of good names there in midfield, to be honest. I think there's also potentially Tyler Morton, depending on how his situation plays out with him coming back, and then Bajcetic, right? So I think if we have that extra layer of depth with Morton and Bajcetic, depending on how he comes back from injury, I think it's pretty set. Having another body just in case is always good because you can never account for any injuries potentially going through the season. And with the Europa League schedule, just hoping that there is enough rotation, then you can get a good amount of games in for anyone that you're also bringing in. But I think just rattling all those names off the top of my head for the midfield, I feel like it's probably like my famous last words. I feel like that sounds pretty good, but
it does sound good. That's interesting. I mean, like when you list those names, it definitely sounds a lot better than the list Klopp spit out last preseason as midfielders. Like, when we were asking for midfield signers, he was like, what else do you guys need? And he counted those names. The list you listed definitely sounds a lot better. Is that because they're just like newer or more
Probably.
of the fact that we feel they'll be more available?
I think a little bit of both. It's the the shiny new toy that we talk about when it comes in. We always want to believe that this next person that gets transferred is going to be the next best player to ever play in this kit, kind of thing. Which is you want to be excited about it, but you also have to temper your expectations sometimes. But I think seeing what we've seen in McAllister and seeing the potential in Soboslai, I feel like having that and rotated in with a bunch of the the old guard, if you will, I think that sets up the team pretty nicely. So I do think if there's one more midfielder besides Lavia, then I'm not going to say no. But I think if Lavia does come in, or one of Lavia's or Thuram come in, I think that was what we would see be the end of it, and I think I would be comfortable with that.
I think it's a little bit of a convincing job, and expecting the new player to think long term too. I think for Lavia, that's a very big possibility. I know about Thuram. Will he look for an opportunity where he can play more right off the bat? Otherwise, when you bring a young player in, you can be like, dude, look around. Look at how old Fab is, how old Hando is, how old Thiago is. In a year or two, you're going to be one of the main guys of this midfield. And I think in terms of, you can kind of sell that to a young player and have them still come on board despite this long list of midfielders they're going to have to compete with. Ryan says, I feel with Zobo, which is what I'm going to call him, Zoboslai. I mean, it's not that bad. Just ignore the Z's and it's a breeze. Oh, look at that.
Oh,
look
my
at
God.
that. Monday.
I've rubbed off on you.
Let's call the show right now. We're okay up front. Midfielder and defender sets it up for sex. I mean, that's the thing. I think another midfielder defender, I think the Soboslai move kind of tells me we are not going to go after somebody else up top, which enables you. Yeah, I think it sets you up pretty well with that open spot to be able to sign Lavia, another defender, and maybe like I mean, we're all asking for a center. You think Klopp is asking for a center back, or is just us asking for a center
I
back?
don't know what
I mean, he really has the same center backs he had last year.
Klopp could sit there and say, I don't need any center back ever again, and then 90 or 50% of the fan base would still attack FSG for not getting a center back. Like it's tough to know what he wants and what he's comfortable with. I feel like we've seen that he's a pretty, I guess, sentimental coach is what I'd call him. Like he loves to hang on to the players that he's built these teams with, and it's okay to an extent. It tends to really hurt when you see a bunch of players leave for free and you don't really get anything out of it. But that's why I think he still feels pretty good on what he's got. But I think having a younger left-footed center back to just even it doesn't have to be the likes of Kim Min Jae, like it doesn't have to be such high profile, but high enough profile where they're comfortable sitting behind and learning, but not such a raw project where we have no idea what's going to happen, like Reese Williams or something like that. So I think there's a good balance. I just don't know where he wants to go.
That's when you need a sporting director who's going to be able to say, "Hey, bro, yeah, I know you love him, but how about we get this younger version of him, and I take him and get 10 million for him, and then we'll get you this guy just as good. He's a great kid as well, kind of a deal." But and yeah, that's what like Sidus says. Club will only say no to a new center back due to his loyal to the old players like Matip. I know Saido wants Matip gone in a nutshell. You think the Matip we saw last year, which kind of was a shell of himself, is very similar to Fabinho in terms of he was a shell of himself either as well. Do you think we get those guys back after a full summer? Like or like the guys we used to have, or are they at that age where that guy's gone?
It's tough. I think Matip is done. But I think Fabinho, we could still see more of his former. I think the sliding scale for the transfer stuff. I think the Fabinho side is the more likely, like could happen. But Matip going back to his old self is more of the doubt it to like not bloody likely. Like right before that line, I just. Maybe I flipped those two in my head, but I think that's where I'm sitting at.
See, honestly, I guess my hope is, Ryan says I like Mario playing every 7 games. One thing I liked about Matip, especially once we saw how teams are going to play this, like how they're going to play against Trent when we use him as a center fullback. Konate had all day on the ball, and he could push up with it. He could pass with it. He could do whatever he wanted with it. I think at that time, I kept saying to myself, and I love Konate, and defensively, obviously, he's a lot better physically and everything. But in terms of going forward against a team that's sitting back, I felt like, man, Matip could just party with that space that's given to him by pushing up, and he's a good passer of the ball. That's one thing I will hope, Konate improves in the offseason. So I think Alan was asking earlier, Sepp and I always butcher his name.
Billy,
yes. Billy and Sepp. Leaving, staying, where are you at with either one? Sepp fits like a glove, I think, because he's injured a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to put those two specifically. I saw that comment earlier, and I was like, I don't know. I hope Timucin doesn't really pull it up because I don't know what to say about these two. Like, I think we had high hopes for Billy. I think Kumetia, I think that's how you say it, or Kumetia. He had that one that preseason, was it last year? I think, or the year before.
I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And we're like, oh my god, like this guy is a baby Van Dyke kind of thing. Like look at his size, look at him come in, and then I haven't heard his name until just now again. So I feel like with him, at least Sepp had a decent spell. At Preston, was it? And then and then somewhere else.
Hoffenheim, or is it?
Yeah,
It's a German team, but I can't.
yeah,
Don't call me on the
something like
Hoffenheim.
that. And so at least he's had. But as far as Billy, I haven't really heard anything about his play. And I feel like with Sepp, they both have good size though, which is a thing. So I don't know if they do help with the homegrown numbers. Is the other thing.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that we have to remember again is homegrown numbers. So I think they stay for now, unless you get a more experienced version of them that are also still homegrown.
Yes, Schalke, by the way.
Schalke. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Sepp, in some ways, if he is like fit, he fits the system really well with his speed and stuff like that on that right hand side, and gives you another person who can play center back there as well as right back, similar to Gomez. So he fits that. I know I was actually shocked to hear some of the stats, like he was like one of the fastest players and stuff like that, because his turning speed just did not look like that at all when he was playing for us in like that preseason. I was like, oh man, I don't know how this is gonna work. But here's another thing we don't know. I mean, we're doing all these estimations. Sido's over here like just trying to get Mateusz the heck out. I think, and yeah, Billy did have a pretty bad loan spell. It was not not like Sepp, that's as well. So I don't know how we're going to play to determine, like, yeah, we need this guy, he will fit. We're kind of almost assuming we go with this, continue with this 4-3-3, and in that case, we're trying to fit people in. I mean, if we do convert to something else and play three in the back and stuff like that, obviously that changes everything. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't think Mateusz fits that, for example, at all. And that's why I'm thinking, yeah, we do not make that big of a radical change.
And
but we shall see.
He's 31. I mean, like we're getting past that point where you don't see players finding their form at this point in their life, at this age. You could have like up to, I mean, Fabinho's still 29, so I feel like he still has physically another year or two where you could really get the most out of him.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Matip is just past that hill, and being 6'5", like that does take a lot out of you. Like there is something to be said about.
Do tell.
Let me tell you,
I can't relate.
My knees at 30 years old right now are shot. Granted, I'm only 6'4" and not 6'5", but if I was 6'5", I might be in a wheelchair. Yeah. If my knees are the way they are at 6'4", who knows?
This is science, people. This is science right here.
And every person of the height is the exact same. There's no exceptions ever. Don't look at any NBA players that are playing well at 6'4" or 6'5".
Those are all exceptions. Yeah, I mean, as a short dude, I can't relate. Sadio says this is the time we see technically mixed 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 3-2-3-2. Yeah, that's way too many numbers for a club right there. Let me stop you right there.
No, there's only one formation. It's going to be like the 1-4-5. Yeah. Van Dijk, and then you're going to have the midfield of Trent, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Curtis Jones. Yeah, and then you do Diaz, Darwin, Jota, Salah, and Elliott. I don't know. Just full out attack.
I don't know how much of a change. Are we going to do the 4-3-3 or are we going to see a small tweak? I definitely don't see like a catalog of, and then we switch to this and stuff, because I think Klopp is the kind of manager that sticks to one thing that we know we do well. And the belief is, if we do what we do well, doesn't matter what the other team does, and which is fine. I'm okay with that. Can't argue with the results. But at times you gotta make those adjustments. Sir Z says, let Elliott leave on loan. I doubt it. No, I mean, not after the season he had. You're only letting Carvalho go. And here's another thing, like, you do want, and that's not, he is homegrown numbers as well, so you don't want to let him go anywhere. So speaking of radical changes over here, let's talk about this. Stevie G is going to Saudi Arabia after all. So he will take charge of Al Ettifaq with the Liverpool account to be handed millions to build a new title-winning team. So let me ask you this. Did Stevie convince the family, or did the family convince Stevie?
I think. Oh man, I don't know. That's a tough question. Actually, I thought I had an answer.
Come on, man.
Like,
You're a
wait a
married
minute,
man
no.
now. You should be able to.
Oh yeah. Well, then let me go and get the answer from Michelle so that I can tell you what my answer is. You know how it goes. So yeah, I don't know. I will say this: it's a lot of money potentially, and I think even if his family don't go over there with him for a year or so, depending on because we don't know what the situation's like, whether it was the family pushing him on or him trying to convince the family. There's a world where they could stay in England and he could go over there for a year or two, make a bunch of money, come back, kind of thing. It's fine. I'm just curious to see because it says to build a title-winning team of superstars. There we looked up the team. They haven't signed anyone this summer so far. So I don't know if they're giving Gerard like the keys to everything. Like what kind of superstars do you want? Because it'd be kind of fun to see who Stevie would like to build this superstar team around, and what they would pay for these guys. But it's also yeah, do us a favor. Actually, that could be, you're onto something here.
Right there. He could sign Thiago for 50, Matip
50?
for 80.
Don't
it
stop
would be
there.
kind of like the deal that City does, like they make their own sponsors and stuff like that. We will make Stevie our own sponsor.
He walks in there and he goes, look, guys, I know Thiago's market value is only about 40. I think we're getting a huge steal if we get him for 60, though. Let's do it.
Start with Zlatan. I don't know, that's going to be interesting, too. Here's another thing. Like, if you are in charge, we should do this next week. You're given this kind of money. Who are you bringing over to start a team?
You know what? That actually, we should do something like that, and we should use transfer market values for players. And, you can only go within, let's say, 10% of their market value. And let's give each other, I don't know, 300 million, whatever we want to do to build an 11. And then see what happens.
Yes. So this should be next week's project over here. So bring your calculators, because that's definitely going to be needed. And then, we'll pull up transfer markets. Can you narrow the search down to 29 and above in terms of players available?
I'm sure you can.
See if you can sign some people that way.
Do we have any restrictions as far as who we can sign? Can we go and pick someone that we know is never going to actually leave that club?
No, it should be realism. Should be a factor.
Realism bar is set on instead of off. Okay.
But I mean, here's the thing. We say that, but if that realism thing was switched on, would we say if I added Neves, you'd be like, dude, that's not happening? More than likely, right?
A month ago, I'd be like, yeah, there's no way he's going to stay in England. He's 26 years old. There's no way.
Why would he go there and stuff?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll put it to the audience, and they can judge if it is approved, realistic or not. Part of the attractive or not thing. Start with Zlatan. He is Ryan insists with. He finally retired, correct?
Technically, yes. He said
again. I should say, but I mean, you would think Zlatan will go there, and I know Zlatan will play in that heat, but Zlatan will go there and probably do well, I would think.
He could, yeah. He is 42 at this point. He's got some miles on him.
Well, yeah, he does have some miles on him. But the dude, I mean, what he does, he can do without. I mean, obviously, here's the thing. What is he gonna play? I don't know if he can play a really high pressing system and stuff like that over there. I don't know if you have to consider the league.
He doesn't get back past midfield. There's no way.
No, Zlatan is not gonna. He's like, well, I'll be up here when you guys get the ball. He's gonna be that guy you hate playing indoor with. He's like, when you guys get it, I'm wide open up top. Yeah, because you're not coming back and they're pushing up.
He's screaming and yelling at everyone for their D and for their defense, and he's just sitting up there by the goal waiting for the ball.
So let's do this on our way out. Since we don't know yet, I really thought actually by the time we do the pods this morning or tonight, I thought we'd have two signings. I think the U21.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I thought we would get another one over the line. But hey, at least we got one of them done. But as of now, because we almost feel if it is Lavia, I don't think you're starting him in the starting 11 anyway. And sticking with the 4-3-3, who is in your midfield? I don't know if you mentioned Jones earlier, by the way. Did we mention?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So who are you putting as your starting opening day midfield as of now.
That's really rude to do that to me right now. Okay,
Hey, just
let's
as good
go.
as you not wearing the ring, buddy boy.
Let's go.
And Michelle will let you know about that after the show, I'm sure.
She doesn't watch. It's fine.
For my sake and your sake, thank God. Okay.
McAllister. Fabinho, Szoboszlai.
Okay, I would like really love to know what the audience thinks about this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I am going
weird.
McAllister, Fabinho, Henderson for opening day. You think Sobo like goes in?
Oh, okay. This is for. I thought. Yeah, I don't. Okay, I don't think.
See, Saidu likes your midfield. Because bear in mind we're playing Chelsea away, right? Opening day.
Yeah.
That doesn't change your thinking. You're still
I'm bearing in mind. I'm bearing in mind, and then there's just a big old bear just like ripping at my brain. I don't think we see both Fabinho and Henderson together.
Okay.
So I think if Hendo's going to be in sort of for that captainship, that leadership for Stamford Bridge away opening day, I think then it'd be McAllister, Henderson, Szoboszlai in my mind. I do think both McAllister and Szoboszlai start opening day. I feel like I shouldn't say that given Klopp's track record with new players, but that is where my heart is set right now.
Alan says, "Who is the boss in your house?"
Oh, you guys know it's not me.
Alan, I know Alan has had some marriages and rings, so that sounds like a mood question. I think we all know the answer. I'm not even gonna pose that. Yeah, like Saido, who's a Henderson hater as well, is not. I just feel like I think if you were playing at home against Fulham, I might have gone with your midfield. I think the fact that you're going away to Stamford Bridge, which I know, by the way, is not I don't think we ever talked about the fixture. In some ways, I know it's not an ideal game to start with. You rather go, like an easier game, at least on paper. But in some ways, going against a team like Chelsea at that time could be something good before they get settled to what the hell they're doing, right?
I agree 100%. I think much better to play them in the first week or so than it is to play them a month or so down the line. Because you think back to this season when Manchester United got absolutely destroyed by Brentford. After that game was when Ten Hag made the changes to drop in Ronaldo right before the game they played against us, where they won 2-1, right? So I think if you can get ahead of any of these bigger teams trying to fit in a bunch of this new talent before they get settled in, that's the best way to go. So I think having it, while it's not the most ideal first fixture, I think it's the best way to start. And it's going to end up 0-0 because that's just how these fixtures go. So it's fun.
That's what Ryan said.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
I think, I know, I feel like, before they get settled in would be an ideal time to go. And I still say, by the way, if we beat freaking United that day, it would have started the end of Ten Hag right there, right then, because it was a bold move to make those changes. And I think if we made him pay for those changes, and we could have, if we didn't play extremely poorly, I think he would have started. We almost like jump started because it looked like a great score, a great result for them with those changes, and they got kind of like a wave going. We could have ended it right there, right then, I think, and because there were already rumblings after that Brentford ordeal. So another one after the changes would have brought full chaos there, and we kind of did not take advantage. Henderson shouldn't play against tough opponents like loaded Chelsea, Arsenal. See, I actually think the opposite. I think you see Henderson in those games. A well-rested Henderson in those games is golden. I still say that. But you got to rotate Henderson. He can't then start the next week against Burnley or somebody like that. That's when you're going to have to go back to your younger players and bring Henderson in the last 15 minutes of that game. But
Yeah.
I think for starting, if you have a cup final or something like that, I think both for his leadership on and off the pitch, you have to put Henderson in there. Or I know I'm biased towards Henderson because I think he's in many ways a better captain than Stevie. I feel like, especially on the pitch.
He's probably the most underappreciated player in the last decade, besides maybe Firmino. Like
Yeah.
for the entire fan base, I think. If you were to go in and ask 100 random Liverpool fans from around the world and kind of ask them for the most impactful players of the last 10 years, I think too low of people would mention either Hendo or Bobby.
Yes. I think Bobby now is one of those things that, everybody realized on his.
I mean, after the doc and all that, yes,
after like
they
on his way
realized.
out, they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, look at all that we're missing." But yeah,
True.
when he was there, he's
True.
like, "He's a forward. He should be scoring more." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You heard that all the time, and I think, yeah, like with Henderson, I think what gets overlooked is how, especially when we play against teams that sit back or when we have to fight in midfield, what he does in midfield just goes unnoticed. How much he covers Trent goes unnoticed. How fast the ball moves is the biggest thing when Henderson is on the pitch, especially when we're playing against teams that sit back. Henderson is the only one that swings that ball from one side to the other fast, and that's what Klopp wants. One thing with Thiago is, and I think, we brought him in to play against those teams that sit back. But one thing that he does do is keep that ball way too long and lets everybody settle in. The ball does not move as fast. I think Thiago has been better when we had to control the game, when we had the lead and control the game, as opposed to when we're chasing a goal, which I thought that's why we brought him in for originally, right? Like against close defenses, we need that guy with the critical pass. But I think it turned out that he was better as, we had the lead to control the pace, to control the game, to control the midfield. But when we're looking for a goal and trying to open somebody up, odd to say, but Henderson was the one going that. Henderson on the big games and not more than once a week. I think so. Yeah. Even I would say, like I say, I don't know if I start him back to back. So just come off the bench. He should be Milner, but still should get a lot more starts than
Yeah,
Milner.
and he still hasn't reached that point where he's like he shouldn't be starting either. Like there was a point where we appreciated Milner for what he was doing, but we never wanted him to see him start. I don't think Henderson's at that point yet where I don't want to see him start. I can still happily see him on the starting lineup and be comfortable with that. And I think another part, along with the captaincy thing, having someone like Soboslai coming in, who is a captain of his national team at 21 years old. I know he's 22, but he was captain last year. I think that's also something that's really important to see. Is it's going to be another strong voice in the locker room potentially once he gets more comfortable. So I think and then Henderson could slot more into that, like we've been saying, more in that Milner role over the next few years when there's more of these vocal players on the team who are able to take on the captaincy the way that he would want them to.
Yeah, I could not disagree more with Saidu. The creativity, zero defensive or counter pressing.
That's just mean.
No way. That is no way. You got to go back and just watch a game and just watch Henderson and see what he does off the ball. I think he's one of those players similar to, and those guys never get recognized, similar to Bobby. Just watch him, not when he has the ball, but when he doesn't have the ball, and see what he does and how fast. I guess it also depends on, we're putting this, and Ryan agrees, in terms of like this, once every other week in the big games and stuff. But I think that really depends on what we get out of McAllister and Szoboszlai when they come in too. Will they be able to pick up the slack for stuff that Henderson was doing? So you do actually end up starting Szoboszlai like you from the get-go in like week one. Henderson is not going to be happy to hear about this.
Or he could be happy knowing that there is someone that could actually take on that role again. He's comfortable with that player doing that and not feeling like it's his responsibility to have to do it all the time because we don't have a good enough cover on that right mid side.
Yes. I mean, Man, I'm like really torn on this. And I guess that's why this preseason is going to be very interesting. Formation wise, like what have we changed? And
Mhm.
I don't even know if we're going to show a lot of that, especially in the early preseason.
Right, right.
But and who's going to be used in what role within that? I mean, there are players like Nunez. I don't know how he's going to end up fitting. Do we use Gakpo where Bobby was, and where does that put Nunez? Do we change the formation? A lot of like interesting things to see and watch for in this preseason. What's going to be the role of players like Hendo and stuff like that? I mean, and Fabinho. And here's another thing, like we were talking about earlier, like what do we get back? We've been kind of, I guess, are we being too optimistic when we say this team was tired? They needed an off season so we can get the old Fabinho, old Van Dijk. Well, I don't think you're going to get the same exact old Van Dijk. You're not going to get the Superman Van Dijk. We're going to get the,
Yeah.
the solid Van Dijk. Are we just being too naive and optimistic? Like, are these guys going to, do they really need rest, or they need like a Benjamin Button kind of a deal going and get younger somehow? It's just age, not rest.
I think the optimists in us say that it's rest, but you could realistically look at it and go, it's just another year on their bodies, and it's not going to get any better. And you could, when I think of those players, it's Robbo, it's Van Dijk, it's Fabinho, it's Salah, and Hendo. Right? Those are the guys that you hope that it was just rest potentially. But not that, I'm not saying any of them had a bad season in necessarily, but, those are the guys that you would look at and go, I hope it was just tired legs and not the fact that they are aging and they're getting past their prime. But those would be the main targets for that next phase of their careers. Like, are they past that hill that they were on? Like, are they finally going this way rather than staying right here? Right? Like, they were going up and up and up, and now they were here last year, you could say, and now you're like, all right, is this the part where they have an extra year in this level field, or is this now where they're going to start to go downhill? And I think especially when you look at someone like Robbo having a new system that could help maybe save some miles on his legs could be really helpful for the next year or so. Get an potential extra year that you wouldn't get out of him. So it's like you said, it'll be interesting to see what happens and what the changes will be like. But it's a little nerve wracking when about half of your starting core is at that point where you don't know if it was age or rest that they needed.
Yeah, and then, like I say, I don't know if do we change the system to suit them better, knowing where they're at in terms of like their career, or do these players make the adjustments themselves a little bit in terms of how they play? I mean, I always talk about, like Van Dijk and stuff, especially in terms of how he handles certain situations, knowing, some of the physical traits are going to diminish regardless of how much rest. I can rest all freaking week. At the end, I'm still going to be slow. And so there's certain things that does not come back with rest. And I think that's what we're going to see. Ryan says, I also see Robbo being gone next year. I can see that based on, like I said, what formation play, what we do, and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to be like an interesting offseason to watch all those like little nuances and what we're seeing, and like where Saidu is trying to get. Henderson retires as a Liverpool player. Calm down, Saidu. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be starting.
Oh, he could retire as a Sunderland player. I think there's a chance. Yeah, I think there's a chance he goes back. I think if they get promoted this upcoming year, I think he'll stay at Liverpool for another year and then maybe go over there. I think in about 2 or 3 years, I see him at Sunderland for a year.
I know we made the same romantic scenario for Milner.
I think that was different. I think Milner, he played for a few more clubs. Henderson,
that's true.
It was just Sunderland and Liverpool. And I think like hearing Henderson talk about Sunderland and kind of his story, I feel like he romanticizes it more than Milner did with Leeds, at least in what I heard. So I think that's the only reason why I could see Hendo, that being a lot more likely than Milner going back to Leeds. And that's not done yet. Milner can still go back to Leeds after Brighton year. Like, he's not retired technically. So
Yeah, that's true. But I do. Yeah, that is a good point about Milner being in more teams and Hendo having that like just the Sunderland connection this past. So that is a good point. So I can see that. I would not want to see that. But I guess I can. I know who would like to see it, and that's Saito. So we finish every show with a prediction next Monday. We don't. Well, from now on, we end every show with. um, so before we meet next Monday, how many new players will we have, and will you have your ring? Discuss.
Second question, yes. Easy. Easiest question ever. First question, I think there will be one official new signing with one really hot rumor.
Hot rumor,
As in the player is going to be really attractive, but the rumor will be more like doubt it. So there's that.
okay. So he will have a chin that even my wife will like. Is that what we're going with here?
If that's all that it takes, yes.
Apparently, it does. It's a huge deciding factor. And the moment I saw the dude's picture, Kazi was like raving about him. And the moment, I'm not really paid attention, but the moment I looked at the features and I was like, nope, the chin is gonna go. Wife is not gonna be happy about that.
That's why he's
But
growing the beard.
we did say with Kazi that no, see, like I don't have that. Even if I did shave this, don't have that thing in the middle there. That's for some reason is a deal breaker for the wifey. But then again, as we said, these are women who chose us as partners. So I don't know. Taste is definitely questionable. But so I will be back tonight with the gang. Hopefully, they will not be as angry as they were. Nerves will be a bit more calmed down. I have told them to give it a week, and it'll be a lot calmer. So hopefully, the anger meter is a lot lower for Galley and Bickler.
We need an anger meter now.
Yeah, we do need another anger meter, something like this, but just
Yes.
anger.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, those guys are always angry. But I would think the Soboslai. I know I saw Galley yesterday, already excited about. He had that FIFA like the FIFA manager thing going. He was already making other moves now that we got one down. But I think it will calm. I think it has calmed a lot of nerves down overall from what I sense. But I mean, every fan is the same way, right? We're like, when are we going to sign somebody? We're like, we sign someone. Well, when is the next one then? Now we need another one. So I think I like how we're doing it. And I really think within a week, we finish everything we're going to do. So I do agree. I think we have 2 new players by the time we meet next Monday.
Well, you were wrong this last week. So
I think we're going to finish the deal early. I think Klopp wants everything set before we start camp and start like we got to get to work. And I kind of like that attitude overall that we got to get to work and make us forget last season.
Yeah.
So actually, you know what? Let me ask you this. I did make an appearance in the Footy Fantasy podcast yesterday where we talked about Liverpool. So let me ask you this question yesterday. It was a great discussion, actually. A lot of it was like 4 people. It was more like a 2v2 going there in most topics like FSG and Klopp and stuff like that. But one thing that I want to ask, well, and put you on the spot right here, is last season, if you take the 7-0 away, what is your best memory out of last season? It's hard because there isn't a lot, but
the first one that comes in my head is the Jota winner against Tottenham, because I remember sitting in this exact spot, going, "God, I fucking hate this team so fucking much." After a Charleston scored, they tied it up, and then 60 seconds later, just going up and down screaming, "I fucking love this team so much," and that was one of the moments that stood out to me in my mind right away. I'm sure there's a couple looking back on it. Like I think maybe not the 7-0, but just Bobby scoring the 7th in that game specifically was a big one. Bobby's when he tied it up against Villa towards the end of the season there. I think there's also Carvalho's winner against Newcastle. That was a lot of fun. So I think there's a couple that pop up, but I think the Jota winner was the one that comes up right away.
See, this is why we get along so great, because that was mine too. I mean, I mentioned, like the fundraiser we did, because I think 10 years from now, I might not remember that Jota ordeal, but I'll definitely remember that on the 7-0. But instantly, yeah, when I look back, I think, and we were talking about, we're only remembering it mainly because it was Richarlison. If Kane had scored the 3-3, I don't know if we remember it as well and as
Well, yeah,
vividly
because
as a
he wasn't going to be taking his shirt off and doing his little chicken dance. So we would have been like, oh, it's just Kane, of course.
But yeah, I think it's funny though when you look at it. There is like that 9-0 and stuff like that. There's like a lot of games actually there, but
That
it was kind
happened
of like
this
a
year.
vintage, old school before Klopp days Liverpool, right? Like mostly
Just
misery
chaos.
with some awesome moments giving you hope, and then back to misery and back to another great game in a month, once a month kind of thing.
This
But
team beat City, you guys.
yeah, so let's not start. Let's not
Uh,
start. Yeah, beating Spurs while I was in a Baltimore in a Liverpool bar. And I think that, yeah, it was, man, I mean, there were some decent games, and I think, well, let me ask you this then. Give me a grade for Liverpool's last season, because I was really
a
generous
grade?
with this. Yes.
Oof. C plus.
I think I gave it a B minus or a B. I
I
can't
was gonna say B minus. I think, but then I thought maybe because they just eked out Europa League could get the B minus.
Yeah, Ryan says B minus as well. I think that run, before the run, I think,
Yeah.
and maybe because the run was at the end, it's more like, gives you, it's like a teacher, like you really got going at the end of the term over.
And it depends on every other what I give grades to the other teams, because it could be a little sliding scale, right? The C plus might be actually a B minus because there weren't any teams that were quite at A plus.
You should be a teacher. Actually, you were going to be a teacher, right?
Nice. Yes, I was.
History, right? Look at that. Look at that. We should do a documentary on Mateusz, the Polish prince. The rise and fall.
Pretty much like Rome.
Well, we'll be back, like I say, tonight with the other two angry men, and we'll talk about Szoboszlai and other moves. Maybe we'll finish something else by then. I doubt it, but you never know. So join us then tonight, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, live over here again on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you guys then. Have an awesome week, and let's get some more signings in. Let's get less angry. Take care, everybody.